show presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, where you can get your YSRPs, them Yahoo Sports Rewards points, up to $30 upon depositing and signing up on the site. It's very easy to do. Go to awesemo.com, AWESEMO.com, click on the NFL tab, and you will see that primetime article right there towards the top. Click on that. The Yahoo link will be there right at the top. Completely free article. When you sign up, use the promo code AWESEMO. Get your $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Got the $50,000 NBA baller today, 10K to first, $10 entry. The $250K NFL baller coming up on Sunday. We now have CSV edits. And of course, you get in there early and you keep your eyes open. There's a bunch of management-free contests where everything paid in to the contest by the player gets paid back out to the player. So that's right, a lot of exciting stuff happening over there at Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. And you can get $30 in YSRPs to play and get started on the right foot. It's as good as cash to be used to play and win money. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the NBA Strategy Show. I'm Dave Loughran. For those of you that generally are only NBA guys, this right here is my man Jazz Raz DFS, Ben Rasa. But everyone already knows you, Ben, because you do like a large portion of our PGA work, phenomenal stuff. And you do a lot of NFL stuff. You and I have been doing the NFL deeper dive for years now. It's good to have you with me on the show, man.
Happy to be here. Yeah, I decided to fill in for Josh this morning. You know, a nice 8-game slate to break down. I told you before the show, I'm glad I can do it because it was so windy last night. I thought I might not have power, but we're all good in New York, ready to roll.
Anyone that's in the Northeast, you saw those storms. They were we had tornado warnings all around us. I told you before the show, and I love that stuff. Like I want to chase tornadoes once I'm at a point where if I did get carried away, everyone in my life would be secure, financially, of course. But people say, oh, why would you want to do that? Think about it. If you ended up dying in a tornado, right, chasing a tornado, you'd be a hero anyway. Some may consider you stupid, but the way I see it, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. How did he pass? He got sucked up in an S5 out there in Nebraska or Oklahoma. Pretty cool story to tell your friends.
Yeah, Bill Paxton, as Chad is already ahead of the game, Bill Paxton-esque, Twister style. So
no question. Great movie. Yeah. Well, Dorothy in the back.
Great
movie.
They
haven't made a good tornado movie since. Have you thought about that?
Not recently, but that is true. Dante's Peak. They had a good run of natural disaster movies, and now we need to come back around to that.
That's right. Black Matt and Laffy talking about dying chasing tornadoes in Nebraska. I'm losing this slate. No, bro, we got you covered.
Slow. Don't worry, we're gonna pick it up.
My point simply was that we didn't get anything. Like I'm always looking out for it. I even told my wife, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna sleep with the window open tonight just so I can hear it coming, and enjoy it. We didn't even get any wind. We were supposed to get debilitating winds. Take your electric out. Nothing.
There you go.
All right. Anyway, let's jump into it. I try and get some useful platitudes out there and useful stories before the show. You know how it works. All right, let's kick it off. Oh, and by the way, before we do, what do you have coming up today on YouTube and on the site?
For sure. Busy day. So at noon, me and Nolan Kelly will be talking NFL betting, breaking down the spreads. Little college football. I will have articles posted. It's also, for any horse people, it's the Breeders' Cup today and tomorrow. Big things, one of the biggest racing days of the year. So if you want to bet on the ponies in Slack, just talk to me. I will be gambling like a fiend later today. So busy day, but a really good one in the sports world.
Yeah, I don't know how you juggle all those sports. I'm like heavily juggling football and basketball right now. You've just got everything. So more power to you, fella. Let's dive into it. 8 games to talk about. I did the Early Bird podcast with Dan Strafford last night, so you can check that out. And I actually like this slate. Right now, I wouldn't say there's a ton of value to be had, but things will certainly open up, and we'll break down all of these players that are questionable or doubtful, and kind of take a cursory look at the circumstances in the event that they sit and who's going to fill in for them. Let's start with the Pacers and the Cleveland Cavaliers, 213.5 total, very low total. As a matter of fact, it's tied for the lowest on the slate. And you got 110 total for the Pacers, 103 for Cleveland. Cleveland's a dog, 7 points on the road. A couple spots to get to here. Malcolm Brogdon's been very, very good. And Dan asked me yesterday, Ben, he's like, does he warrant this price point? Well, first of all, if you weren't playing him at that 7K price point after seeing his involvement, then, you probably aren't playing him now. But hopefully everyone jumped in on that when he was below 7K, even 60 or 7,300. The crazy thing is, though, he's second in potential assists per game in the league this year. He's fourth in drives per game. He's tied with LeBron James with 93 touches per game. Brogdon's doing a lot for this Pacers team. He's clearly the driving force behind anything positive that happens in Indy right now.
Oh, there's no doubt. And the price has risen, but it is warranted. And we know Oladipo, no Turner. The question I have, it's kind of a weird way to start because it's like, can he keep this up? I think honestly the answer is yes. But when I look at this slate, there are so many guys, particularly at the guard position, with the opportunity cost that I'm not sure I'm going to get to a ton of Brogdon. And it's really nothing that he's doing. It's just kind of the nature of the slate. So I get it. I know the price has risen and he has been phenomenal. So it's a fine play. I just, right off the bat, I kind of have other priorities when I look around this slate.
Yeah, me too. And we don't want to spoil anything, but James Harden, even though his price is up, he's facing Brooklyn in a game that has a 241.5 total. That's the highest we've seen on the season thus far. Russell Westbrook's below 10K. Doncic is 97 against the Lakers in a game with a 1-point spread. Kyrie Irving in that game against Houston. I mean, I'm not usually an advocate of the whole game stack, but man, if there's ever a way to get a Harden, Westbrook, Irving lineup in there on a game where each team's got a near 120 total, there's a lot to be had across this slate today, which is why Brogdon at such a steep increase is going to be tough to get to when he's basically the same price as Kyrie Irving, D'Angelo Russell without Steph Curry, without Klay Thompson. Of course, without Klay Thompson, but there's a lot here, and I can see why you wouldn't be getting to that.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. And, the minutes are steady. The production, I think, is going to be pretty steady for him with the way the Pacers are kind of, equipped right now. But at the same time, again, you look, the way to buy was right out of the gate. And of course, the sites have caught up to him. Matchup is fine. I mean, at home against Cleveland, other priorities for me on the slate.
Yeah, I do think on Yahoo, Brogdon makes sense at at $33. Relative to the rest of the slate, I think he's like the 15th highest priced player. But when you compare him to, say, Westbrook, who's 49, Harden, who's 55, Giannis is 54, $33 is a pretty significant discount. So I think he's viable there. Is there, and of course, this is projected to be the lowest scoring game on the slate. Not that that takes away from everything, but it might not be the most appealing game. What are you doing with the Pacers outside of Brogdon, if anything?
Yeah, not much really. I mean, I looked at Jeremy Lamb. I have some interest in. Returned after the hip, was effective in finally getting them a win. Still priced pretty fairly across the industry. I think in competitive games, if they go small, still see 30 plus minutes. So I don't mind that, but it's not a team that has much going on. Similar, I know we'll talk about them in a second. Cleveland, especially, in the backcourt, just a lot of guys fine, but nothing that really stood out to me. So maybe one of the wings, someone like Lamb, but other than that, I don't see much. Do you have any Lamb, any Warren? What do you make of it?
Right now, no, I don't. Okay. Again, we're going to get to some games that are just that much more appealing. Yep. Talking about the Cleveland side, going over some numbers. First of all, Kevin Love has a usage rate below 20% this season, which I don't know if that's going to continue. I've mentioned a couple times it's possible that, they're just going to place emphasis on the younger players in a complete rebuild year. But the crazy thing is he has a 27% rebound rate. It's easily the highest of his career. But here's the thing. He's averaging 18 rebound chances per game and 16.8 real rebounds per game, meaning he has a 93.1% rebound chance percentage, right? He's holding 93.1% of possible rebounds. For context, Drummond's rebound chance percentage is 68. Tristan Thompson's 58, Rudy Gobert 53. So literally everything that's coming close to Kevin Love for a rebound, he's brought it in, which tells you that might not last either. So I think the usage probably goes up, the rebounding comes down, but his price has come up to a point where I don't really see myself getting there either. Cleveland's a team that's hard to get to.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, I think on the defensive rebounds right now, that's going to regress. He is just gobbling up everything. It's Minnesota style on steroids.
He has 2 offensive rebounds on the entire season.
Just, that's insane. So yes, the usage should go up. But again, it's a price point thing for me. You just look across the slate. If you plug him in, that's going to be a direct, negative to getting to someone like Harden, possibly Kyrie on the other side of the Rockets game. Then you have Tristan Thompson, who of course playing well over on FanDuel. If you can't get to a guy like Drummond, makes one of the, I think a pretty good upper mid-range center play. Other than that, though, like I said, you've got guys, Sexton, Garland. They're playing fine, but I just don't think the ceilings are enough on an 8-game slate to really warrant much consideration.
Yeah, me neither. I think we can talk about Houston and Brooklyn, though, because 241.5 total, 118.5 implied total for the Nets, 123 for the Rockets. They opened the 3.5-point favorites. They're now 4.5-point favorites. The total has gone up a little bit, or the over-under's gone up a bit. This is a really, really appealing game on a number of fronts. And mentioned earlier on the early bird today, like if you were fading Harden because you thought his production was struggling with Westbrook, you weren't looking at the numbers, Ben. I mean, he's in those 2 games where actually you can even take those 2 games where he struggled. Struggled, in terms of James Harden struggling, by his standards, he struggled, but for anyone else, the fantasy points were great. He attempted 50 shots, 32 threes, got to the line 33 times across a 2-game span. You knew it was going to turn around. You knew the assists would come up. You knew that the 3-point shooting would improve. You knew that the monster game was coming, and we got that against Washington where they scored a combined 317 points in regulation. 90 attempted 3-pointers, 43 made threes between those teams in one game that didn't go to overtime. Now you've got one that could, I won't say it's going to see the same scoring, of course, but a huge total. The highest on the slate by 16 points. And James Harden, Russell Westbrook have to be at the forefront of the conversation.
When I saw that score, I did not watch that game, and I just assumed that
triple overtime, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
you see what's going on here? I mean, I've never seen anything like that. Then when I looked this morning for a 240 total, I haven't seen that too often in my life either. And that's just the reality of what we're dealing with. These are 2 fast-paced teams, and there's just, this is not, NBA is not exactly a stackable sport in the sense of, where football, where we're talking direct correlation. But I think a lot of people, including me, have interest to load up on this game, and it makes sense. The question I'm just going to throw back to you is, do you have interest in Harden and Westbrook together?
Yeah, I have no issues with it.
Okay.
A couple of reasons. First of all, excuse me. First of all, this team has a total on this slate that is a 123 total. It's way higher than any other team. Matter of fact, the second highest total is in this game for the Brooklyn Nets. So the reason I find it perfectly reasonable to play both of these guys is this. Westbrook averaging 17 rebound chances per game. Harden's at 11. So obviously Westbrook has him there. But then you look at assists, and you know that both of these guys are going to do everything in that category. It's not Capella. It's not Daniel House. It's certainly not Eric Gordon, who doesn't know what an assist is. Russell Westbrook leads the entire league in potential assists with 20.5. Harden, though, is at 17.5, and he's not far off from the league lead, right? Harden's 4th, Westbrook's 1st in the league, and they're both on the same team. They're averaging 39 combined potential assists per game. So what about touches? All right, talk about that. How involved are they? We already know the answer, but we'll do it anyway. Right now, Harden, 83 touches per game, 82 for Russell Westbrook. You can get into drives and all of these other categories, and you have a pretty good idea of what we're looking at. But yeah, both of these guys are top 10 in touches, and they're on the same team. So yeah, to me, seeing how ridiculously involved both of them are, seeing that D'Antoni's going to stagger him as he did with Paul and Harden, I don't think it's a crazy idea whatsoever to play either of them. More shot volume for Harden, but he's also a lot more expensive. And Westbrook, especially on DraftKings, has that triple-double bonus upside every single game.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to touch upon. Westbrook can get there the way he does. He already has a couple through the first couple games here, and those bonuses really help mitigate, because Harden volume-wise, I think it's, to me, I don't want to watch. This will be the death of me. Harden's the guy to me who could, he could get 80, 90, 100, honestly, where Westbrook, I think, is more consistent in the sense the triple doubles are going to be there. A lot of, really solid returns for basically a 10K price tag. But in a game like this, you have to at least consider just loading up. And then you do have some value options on both sides if you want to sprinkle extra exposure within the game.
Yeah, I think Daniel House probably comes into play here. He's discounted. He's 4K on DraftKings. That's, really affordable. On FanDuel, he's 4,500. On Yahoo, you're getting Daniel House at $10 minimum salary. Yep. And he's averaging 30 minutes per game this year? He had 29 last time out, 37, 30, 26. Mike D'Antoni, we know this, likes Daniel House. So while he may not be a particularly strong per minute guy, you don't need huge production to, what is he? He's a 0.83 fantasy point per minute guy this season, playing in a game that has the highest total we've seen on the year. Daniel House to me makes sense.
He does. And he fits what the Rockets want to do. He can make some threes out there. Similar, PJ Tucker's another guy, fairly priced, can shoot the three. He's going to get the minutes. And these are people you can pair around one of the big two if you want to, get a little correlation in your lineup. Eric Gordon, at first glance, I thought another cheap one, but he is doing absolutely, you just talked
crazy.
About his lack of peripherals is insane. And yes, I'm sure he's going to have some games where he gets hot from three, but it is hard to really bank on that. To me, I would rather go with well-rounded options like House. He fills one of the forward positions as well. And there's a lot to like, obviously, on this game. So you have a lot of options.
A lot. Yeah, Capella's an interesting one. But it's crazy to me that that Gordon's averaging 33 minutes per game. He's touching the ball 30 times per game. 15 less touches than PJ Tucker. I mean,
yeah, it's not good.
It's really crazy, man. And his, by the way, his seconds per touch is so low that really either he's just getting a quick shot off or they're moving the ball around the perimeter. Like there's nothing there that stands out as a strong play. You know what's going to happen once in a while. We're going to get that game where he ends up, scoring 30 points on 10 for 15 shooting, and 5 threes. But most of these games, he's going to come in with really underwhelming totals because he doesn't do anything. What do you make of Kyrie Irving? Like you said, it's not something where there's that direct correlation usually, but if I'm playing Harden and Westbrook, my assumption would be that if they're going to have those ceiling games, if they're going to get me where I need to go, they're probably playing all 4 quarters in a competitive game. And if that's the case, it probably means Kyrie Irving's doing a lot on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, if you're going to pair up Westbrook and Harden, I think it can work, but, you are dodging outlier blowouts and other things. You're going to need a competitive up and down game. Certainly you want it going over that total. Kyrie on the other side is, incredibly interesting to me. He's going to take the volume shots. We know he's the leader of this team, and he's really the one that stands out in terms of premier plays. Everybody else, I have interest in guys like Prince, like Dinwiddie, but they're more in the kind of, if you want to reflect it to House, where they're guys I might build around, one of the more polarizing options up top. And just to bring it back to the first game, Kyrie is a direct opportunity cost to someone like Brogdon. And I do lean to Kyrie, head to head in that, just because of this game environment and a 240 total.
Yep. Me too, which is one of the reasons, like you said, it takes appeal away from Brogdon. On another slate, Brogdon could be in a very good spot. He is in a good spot, but just compared to the rest of the field here, it's going to be tough to get there. Anything else from Brooklyn or Houston? And who's your favorite play from this game?
So For me, honestly, it's Kyrie. I
Okay.
think just the price, I getting to Harden, of course, is a good move, but you really are going to have to overhaul your lineup. So if I build balanced, across the slate, there's a lot of guys, in that middle tier that it's much easier to get to if I start even Westbrook Kyrie rather than Harden Kyrie. That extra couple thousand comes in handy. So for me, and then even though he's not a premier option, I think you really do have to consider House. He saves a lot of salary, gets you a cheap exposure to clearly the best game.
Yeah, I think House is. I don't know if I want to say a priority value play, but he's really close.
Yeah.
He's really close to getting there. Let's talk about Milwaukee and Orlando. 109.8 total for the Bucks. 110. Or I'm sorry, 109. Where is this one at? I lost it. Here we go. 109.8 for the Bucks. 105.3 for Orlando. Another low total game. Well, given the times, 215 total. Bucks are 4.5-point road favorites here. Is this a game that you like from either side? Knowing that we just talked about a wildly enticing game. We're going to get to a couple of other games that do stand out. Can you prioritize anything here?
I really can't. Spoiler alert. Yeah, if you can play Giannis, go ahead. That's always a good move, but he is not towards the priority of where I want to spend up. We just rattled off several options in the Houston game that I like. And other than that, Orlando is just bad. They play slow. I don't see much. If you're in a jam and you're really going more stars and scrubs, I don't think it's that crazy to look to a guy like Fultz. The minutes are pretty steady. The ceiling, I do worry a little bit. But if you get a good day, I think he could be a reasonable return for kind of where you're at. Other than that, though, guys like Bledsoe, Middleton, I didn't really have much room for.
Okay. Yeah, interestingly enough, the Magic allowed the 8th fewest points in the paint last season. This year, they're allowing the 3rd fewest points in the paint. Of course, Giannis will always lead or be in the top 5 in the league in points in the paint scored. I really don't worry about matchup with him. So these things are really just nitpicking. But it's more so, hey, do you go to Giannis over a James Harden? And I think the big question really is, is there value in tournaments, right? Is there justification in tournaments to fade Harden to get to Giannis Antetokounmpo, or fade some of these chalk guys in the event that Giannis is less popular? Does that make sense to you, or does it seem like you're getting too cute?
So it's absolutely something you have to consider, and we certainly will have the ownership out if you're getting a significant discount. One of the appeals in the Houston Brooklyn game is you can leverage against Harden directly with other guys, and I do like games like that. Whereas if you don't play Giannis, you just kind of hope this game doesn't explode. With Houston and Brooklyn, if you don't play Harden, you can say, I hope Westbrook explodes in House. And even though you're probably not going to play him, Eric Gordon could get hot. So there are ways to mitigate that. I still think in a vacuum, I certainly lean Harden over Giannis. Aaron Gordon, athletic guy, can maybe cause some problems. We'll see what Vooch can do. But at the end of the day, ownership has to be considered.
Okay. By the way, just backpedaling for a second, Jeremy Lamb right now at awesomeo.com, we have him projected. The ownership projections came up a little while ago. We have him projected for 41% ownership. That seems high.
Yeah, I don't think I moved the markets that much with saying that I like him. I mean, my God, really? That is an outlier of all outliers. I did not expect that at all. I thought he would be a somewhat popular play, but nothing near massive chalk.
Yeah, no, I think Lamb is fine. I just didn't expect that to be the case. But I guess it does make sense just in that this team doesn't have a ton of mouths to feed. There's Brogdon, but he's been a big time playmaker. He's still producing in terms of points. But Jeremy Lamb so far, 26% usage rate. So yeah, I think it warrants consideration. I just wanted to mention this though, Ben, because if he is going to be that popular on an 8-game slate, I'm pretty certain that I can look elsewhere and not have to. I'm perfectly fine playing chalky guys if they're in good spots, and I do think he's in a good spot. But 40% Jeremy Lamb seems pretty outrageous.
Yeah, and I not to say that I won't have exposure but I will certainly look for, like you mentioned, this is not 3 games. We have 8 games. There's a number of plays that you can 1v1 with him. And if you're getting 1/5 of the ownership, I mean, come on, that's something you strongly have to consider.
Yeah, and Giannis right now at 14%, Harden's at 23, so there's really not a huge gap there.
No. Like if
Westbrook,
that's the case, Harden clearly for me.
right, exactly. Hell, LeBron James is up around 16% too. Of course, all this is subject to change throughout the day, especially as we get more news. But does a guy like Markelle Fultz do anything for you here? Coming off a really bad game, but prior to that, he had looked at least somewhat competent off the bench and is, believe it or not, hitting a couple of threes. Hitting a couple of threes for Markelle Fultz is a stupendous accomplishment, right? I mean, this guy in Philadelphia looked nothing like a first-round pick, let alone a draft pick at all in the NBA. You can make arguments, oh, yeah, but what about the assist totals and stuff? He's playing garbage time off the bench. Like, he actually does look better. I don't know how much of this will last, but here he is, $4,100 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, Fultz is $4,600. It is a tough matchup, though. Is there anything for Orlando that you like?
He would be, again, I think if you're really going aggressive and jamming, you have to look to some of these type of plays. The minutes are pretty steady. We should see, 23, 25 type minutes. Can be somewhat well-rounded. Got to make a couple shots, keep it honest. I don't think he's not a priority to force in, but again, 8 games, I'm looking to these type of plays to kind of fill out some of my more aggressive builds.
Do you have anything else from Milwaukee here? I mean, there's guys like Chris Middleton, of course, and Eric Bledsoe. And we could probably talk a little bit about George Hill. People got very lucky with him. And this happens with value plays. So I take nothing away from anyone that had a good night as a result, right? But he played 19 minutes against Cleveland and had 19, 8, and 3 with 38 fantasy points. Hard pressed to say I see that happening again anytime soon.
Certainly not. And you're right. We do see that time and time again if you get hot at value, it doesn't take much. And there it is. And the minutes have come down, you had 31, 29. Now the last 2 have been basically 20. So we'll see. Again, you're looking at him certainly just for a price play. I don't think there's a ton of upside. But if you're saying, you know what, I think, say you want to be unique and you want to try to jam Harden and Giannis, I don't think barely anyone is going to do that. Someone like George Hill is going to be a staple of a lineup like that and someone you have to consider.
Yep. And there's a couple other we'll get to that are going to be popular. Right now, I'm trying to build like a 3-stud lineup. I want to see what it looks like with Harden and Westbrook and Irving. If you do that and just throw them in, you have $4,000 per player remaining for your final 5 players. So it's going to be really tight.
And that's again, not to pick on Harden, but I think you see kind of a different tone. We haven't talked about, we'll get to D'Angelo Russell and guys like that. But if you take 3 basically, 9K-ish guys, that extra salary from Harden to one of those other guys is really going to come in handy for the rest of your lineup.
Right. I mean, look, I wonder if Ersan Ilyasova is going to have some ownership if people are trying to jam in these guys. His minute totals are not high. You're looking at, 19, 20 minutes per game if he's not fouling out. Hopefully you're getting around fantasy point per minute. He's been slightly over that this year. He's in this Milwaukee-Orlando game. Of course, George Hill. Like there are a few of these guys that you say, hey, is it worth me getting to them, especially if you're MMEing and you have 150 lineups? Al-Farouq Aminu coming off a 26-minute game, 21, 21, 29. So I think because there are 8 games, it's actually not insane to think that, one of these guys or 2 of these guys will be in the tournament winning lineups tonight, will be taking down the 100K just as a product of them being cheap and seeing just enough minutes to pay off that salary in the event that one of them has that game that we've all been looking for.
Yeah, I mean, the direct correlation between these guys and Harden or Giannis is going to be extreme because you just talked about that. Sometimes they're just a byproduct of if Harden breaks the slate to the extreme where you need him, then someone like Aminu or someone like Ilyasova, even with a middling game, can be really important just because it allowed you to get to Harden in some capacity.
Right. I mean, you think about this. We saw some of the price points come up on the top shelf players, but Wes Matthews playing 30 minutes a game, he's not a good player, but he's getting 30 minutes a night and he's $3,800. Terrence Ross is one of these guys that we certainly know can go off, right? And while his minutes haven't been huge, Terrence Ross is a big time usage guy off the bench. As a matter of fact, this season alone, you've got him sporting a 25% usage rate. These guys are all just in this one game.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. This is not, we've seen it. I was telling you before the show, 11 games, 3 games, 11 games, 3 games. I don't really like that. This is a perfect blend where, we're not stretched so thin, but at the same time, you don't have to force it in one individual game like you do on a 3-game slate. Sure. I like that. And I think it makes a different type of build tonight, which I'm a fan of.
What do you think about Boston and the New York Knicks? Of course, the Boston Celtics here are favored by 10.5 points at home, 213.5 total. So another one. This is the third of 4 games that have a 215 total or lower. This is the third one we'll talk about. Boston with a 112 total, 101.5 for the Knicks. And as it stands right now, Ben, we'll start with Kemba Walker, who is projected for the 3rd highest ownership of anybody on DraftKings today. And the 2nd highest on FanDuel, by the way.
Boy, Kemba, cardiac Kemba. Let's see. I mean, I wanted to start with my Knicks. I'm not going to lie, but you look at Boston.
You want to start with the Knicks?
Yeah, I've been waiting. This is my moment with the Knicks. They're if I was running things, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, Kemba is someone, when you look immediately, you see he's kind of in the bottom of that condensed tier of top end guys. And I think that's appealing to a lot of people. I know it doesn't seem like a big savings, but it comes in handy at the back end. So you have him, you have Tatum. The guy I wanted to mention on Boston, because I think it's, of course he's not a premier guy, but I think it's important because we're talking about value, is the big man, Theis. If he gets the minutes again, I think he's another guy. We just talked about the Milwaukee ones that you can throw in for salary relief, fills, a center position that can be tough, especially on FanDuel. Am I crazy for going there? I know he's got a Q tag, or does that make sense with no canner?
No, I think he's probable. Daniel Theis isn't a big time producer, but if we expect him to get the start, he played 28 minutes last time out, played through that injury against the Bucks in a pretty unappealing or unenviable matchup. Now you've got him coming in here against the New York Knicks with Mitchell Robinson. I like, but he's only going to play so many minutes. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's crazy at all at this price point. And again, we're going to need value here. So, if you got Bobby Portis backing up Robinson, whoever you have at the 5, it's not a particularly scary spot. The only question is, does he end up getting the same allotment of minutes that he did before? And hopefully they don't go to Robert Williams. Yeah, I think it makes plenty of sense. As a matter of fact, I have no problem with Daniel Theis at $4,000.
Yeah, and I think, just to kind of circle back, I know I glossed over Kemba a little. I have no problem with the play, but at the same time, you mentioned he's going to be popular, and rightfully so. I think for me, he's still behind a couple guys that I'd like to just find a little extra salary and go get guys, either if it's Westbrook, Kyrie, we'll mention Russell soon. But on the other side, unless there's more to Boston, I do want to talk about RJ Barrett, of course.
Of course, let's do it. Starting at point guard.
Yeah, there it is. So no Elf, no Dennis Smith. He was bad last game, but that's going to happen. This is a guy, there's going to be some bumps. The minutes, though, especially when he's effective, they are not afraid to run him out there, 35 plus. And the price, I'm not saying it's not reflective of that. I know it's risen a little, but he's still very playable at this. So I'm not sure I'd go there maybe in a cash format, to be honest. But in tournaments, I think when you're seeing this minutes, even though when it's a tough matchup, I have no problem rolling him out and hoping we get that, 37 plus, 15, 20 shots out of him. And I'll take my chances.
Yeah, not a guy I'm getting to in cash games.
Okay.
But in tournaments, I don't have an issue with it because, first of all, even if you're not particularly good, and he might be, it could turn out that RJ Barrett's great. But if you're starting at the point and in a competitive game you're playing 37 minutes or more, you don't need to be that good. You just need to be on the floor. And you need to dominate touches, which are a couple of things that I expect him to do, right? Especially starting at the point with no Elf, with no DSJ. Those things are going to make Barrett that much more appealing. He's second in the team in touches already this season, but my assumption is now that he's getting the start at the point, those numbers are going to increase for sure. Yeah, I think he's perfectly viable in tournaments. I don't want to go there in cash only because he is pretty volatile, but that's what makes him a good GPP play. The rest of the New York Knicks, I'm a huge Mitchell Robinson fan. I'd love to see his minutes increase to the point where I could have a little bit of trust, or his salary come down to reflect that playing time. But, once again, he's producing well over a fantasy point per minute. As a matter of fact, on the year already, he's averaging 1.5 fantasy points per minute. He's been great. Do you want 20 minutes from him, though? That's kind of tough. Julius Randle has been okay, but that price seems a little prohibitive on a slate that has a lot of good players and plenty in the mid-range. Is there anything else from the Jets that you can... The Jets, dude. This is bad. At least twice a show I call them by the wrong team. Not the Knicks. It could be anybody. It could be the Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears,
Yeah, times are tough.
What are you going to do?
It's that kind of the year. We got a lot going on.
Going on. Yeah, but what do you have else on this game on the Knicks?
Yeah, just to echo your thoughts on Mitchell Robinson. I mean, he's seeing high teens. So far, he hasn't eclipsed 20 minutes. You're just so boxed out of a top-end ceiling performance unless those minutes come. I think it's a similar case, but I will just quickly mention Kevin Knox, who at least his price point is depressed where you have a little more wiggle room. A wildly inefficient player. I've seen that firsthand many a times. But someone that's not afraid to get out there and jack shots. So if he gets a little extra run, and we've seen that, this year, he 29 minutes against Brooklyn earlier, then only 17, it's going to be a little erratic. But if you're in a jam, only 3,600 on DraftKings, 3,800 on FanDuel, I don't mind taking a sliver.
Okay. Chicago and Detroit. The Bulls have actually been playing. I almost called them the Bears because why not? Bears have been playing and I just did. The Bulls have been playing at a bit of a faster pace this season. We saw that happen a little bit with Jim Boylan towards the end of last year, but they're not playing at a crawling pace. Now they're not up, towards the top of the league, but they're right there in the middle. Meanwhile, the Detroit Pistons are playing at a bottom 10 pace, but they're both similar. That 15 to 20 range is very close. And the total in this game is coming in at 216. So on the list of our 5 lowest total games, here is our 4th. We'll get to the 5th one on the 10 p.m. wave. But another low projected scoring game, Ben. You can always make an argument for a guy like Derrick Rose because Reggie Jackson has already been ruled out. He didn't even travel with the team. And Derrick Rose, despite not playing a ton of minutes, is a monster usage guy who at times is going to have these games where, he takes 20 shots and knocks down 13 of them, gets to the line 10 times and dishes out 7 assists, and you have a huge performance, 35% usage rate this season and a 52% assist rate. I'll put it to you this way and let you run with it. I don't know where you stand on this, of course. Rose is probable, by the way, but if Derrick Rose was averaging 30 minutes per game, he would be one of the best quote unquote value plays, sub 6K plays most nights at 30 minutes per game.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, we need to make sure the hamstring is fine. So we'll keep an eye on that. But if it is, he's shown it, and you kind of just summed it up. Even in middling 20 minutes, which looks like kind of what we're going to see with him, he certainly has the ceiling. He can pitch in with the peripheral stats, and this is a guy that has monster usage. So that is what we're looking for. I still wish he was just a little cheaper, but having said that, I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. I think the ownership won't be out of control, because if he was cheaper, he would be the obvious value play. I think on the slate, pending we get word that he's all right with the hammy. But other than that, it's a game, Drummond falls into the same trap as a lot of these other guys. I think he's fantastic, but I just don't know where he falls on my priority list. If you're jamming Harden, this is one of the guys you're probably going to have to sacrifice. So he has the 2020 upside. We know that. but how many teams are you really jamming him ahead of a guy like Westbrook, Kyrie, Doncic, guys like that?
Yeah, I said the exact same thing with Dan Strafford on the early bird is, I'm always willing to consider somebody like Andre Drummond, no question. He'll probably get Wendell Carter Jr. into some early foul trouble and have his way with this Bulls front court. The issue is, I know he had that 32-23 game with 78 fantasy points to start the season, but I guess the question I have for you is how often is Drummond hitting those numbers compared to some of the other guys at a similar price point? I mean, Harden has legitimate like 95 to 100 fantasy point upside, and we've seen it, not to say that's happening every night. Of course not. But, Russell Westbrook has monster triple double upside. Drummond certainly has a high ceiling, but is it to a point where you're okay paying for him in one of the lower total games? Despite how good he is, does it make sense, I guess, was the big question here. And you kind of just answered it.
Yeah, I think that certainly, and I know, we're not trying to advocate this, if you're making a ton of lineups, of course, you're going to want some Drummond exposure. Right. And we get that. I think really, though, when you're talking about priorities and pertinent plays, he is towards the bottom. Now, if ownership dictates that maybe we can get leverage with not a ton, of course, I will look to that. But I have on my screen right now, I just plugged in real quick, Kyrie, D'Angelo Russell, and Drummond, and that leaves you with basically 4,500 per player. If you switch out Kyrie with Harden, you're already down to 4,100. And I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but I think you're going to quickly realize it becomes extremely difficult to use Harden with two of these other, top end guys. I think if you build with three of them, you're probably going to have to sacrifice Harden and Giannis, and that's really where Drummond falls into that category.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, Irving 9K, there's some ways to do it, but yeah, Drummond, you have to think that Drummond is not no, never mind. Drummond right now projected at 19%. That can't be right. Wow.
On DraftKings?
Yeah.
See, that's shocking. I get, on FanDuel where you're looking to fill a center, if you can go up and get them, I know, incredibly expensive, over 10K, but still, I get that. But man, with so many power forwards that are center eligible, I planned on most of my teams to probably fill them with some of the guys, that we've kind of discussed already, and some of the cheaper power forwards that you can get on center.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. What about, I guess the rest of Detroit's kind of a no man's land type of spot. There's guys like Luke Kennard, but that opening game was an outlier performance because he, like many others, is not somebody that you're going to see rack up big time peripherals whatsoever. I know his assist totals have been okay, but that's just okay for Kennard. I mean, when you compare it to everybody else, even some discounted guys, it's kind of tough. He's averaging 5 potential assists this season, averaging 3.6. So that's probably even going to come down. Do you have anything else for Detroit?
I mean, I think, of course, and you guys have plenty of shows leading up to lock. If for some reason Rose is out, Tim Frazier is going to be a guy that immediately vaults into some consideration. But I think that's a more if scenario. I believe Blake is not coming back, right?
No, as far as I know, he's still out. No, he's out today, confirmed.
Okay. So yeah, not much else to say then.
He is close though. He traveled with the team, so that's good. Markieff Morris is questionable too. In the event that he's out, Christian Wood probably gets a really significant boost, only because if you want to talk about guys that are capable of putting up monster numbers in limited minutes, Christian Wood did it at a pretty significant clip last season. Now, he's also going to have games where he doesn't do anything. I understand that. But when you're getting a sub 4K guy that last season averaged like 1.4 fantasy points or 1.3 fantasy points per minute, I'm more than willing to look at him. Of course, he only played 21 total games, but let's see here. He averaged 1.2 fantasy points per minute, which is solid. If Markieff Morris is out, and obviously Blake Griffin is out, Christian Wood probably sees some additional run. I could be wrong, but I would think that's the case.
Man, he's been, not that this matters, he's been in the league for 5 years. That's
yeah, it's
absurd.
crazy.
I feel like I remember him in college. That's kind of shady. Yeah, but you talked about this incredibly efficient guy who can go, we even saw, and it's only been a couple games this year, but against Indiana, just, 8 for 10, 19 and 12. That's the kind of stuff that we can see, but he's going to need, some of the minutes to dictate, and that's only going to happen if Morris sits.
Yeah, and just looking at this last game, Christian Wood directly backed up Markieff Morris. Literally played every minute that Markieff Morris didn't play.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's pretty important. He played literally every second that Morris didn't play, which means that, if that's the case, let me take a look at the game before that. So the game prior to that, Markieff Morris, Christian Wood, he is directly backing him up. So just wanted to make sure that was for every game. If that's the case, I don't know if he starts, but I would put his minutes, if Morris is out, I would probably put him, and I haven't ran it all yet, but honestly, I could put him up around 28 minutes pretty confidently.
That would be huge. I mean, that is a game changer for a guy that you talked about. I like that situation, of course, in the NBA where you can kind of get it right twice. And you mentioned George Hill earlier. Like, even if you get the minutes wrong and say he only plays 20, Christian Wood has shown that he can bail you out. That's not what we're looking for. But then you also have the luxury, even if he doesn't have a stellar game, maybe he gets in the upper 20s and you have a chance to get it right again just on volume.
For sure. Absolutely. Do you have anything for Chicago that you have interest in?
This shameful. Otto Porter, in theory, should be better.
Dude, 100%. He absolutely should.
Like, his price is dropping. It's very reasonable. His injury is to his face. That should not affect anything. I don't exactly have a reason for why he's just been awful, but it's someone that I'm willing, the recency bias in early NBA, I think, is clearly overblown. So I'm probably going to put him in the mixture of these low-end guys to help me pay up at other positions.
I don't hate it whatsoever. I discussed him in this morning's show as well. Usage, of course, is low. Everything looks pretty ugly.
Yeah. But
if the minutes are going to be there, if we should project him to play 30 minutes at 4,300, on a team that, yes, you of course have Zach LaVine, you have Lauri Markkanen, but he should get more opportunities than he's had thus far. I think Otto Porter at that price is at least a decent value play. And of course, though, if guys are injured, like if Christian Wood is in fact one of the top value plays, guys like Otto Porter become less appealing and less of a priority.
No doubt. And I think, again, I always preach this. It translates to every DFS sport. You're building a lineup with 8 guys, and it's all puzzle pieces where, there's a domino effect within games. So Porter in a slate like this, certainly to me, is just boosted because of the way I kind of naturally want to build.
Yeah.
In some of other things where maybe it was a more balanced type, I wouldn't be looking to him. But with so many stars on the slate, I have to consider it.
And you're not on an island. People definitely have some interest in Otto Porter here at this price tag, so it makes sense to me. How about the Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks? You take a look at the total here, 216.5. This normally would be really, like, if we did this show 5 years ago or even 4 years ago, every game having a total of at least like 215 or 213 or higher would be insanely high, right? Now you look at this and you say, oh man, some low scoring games. 216.5 here. Lakers are 1.5 point favorites with a 109 implied total in Dallas. Well, I guess we should start with LeBron and with Anthony Davis on a day where we have Harden and Antetokounmpo and Doncic and Westbrook and Irving. Where do you prioritize, if at all, guys like Davis and LeBron?
I try not to say with every guy, you got to consider him. And I get if you want to make the case, but I don't think I'm going to have any LeBron tonight, to be honest. And AD may follow suit. They're towards the bottom for me. And it's just, again, it's an opportunity cost thing. We've seen, 40 and 20 with the bad shoulder. We know that AD can go nuts. Besides Harden, this is someone we've seen historically can put up numbers that no one else can. But at the same time, I do think there is a reasonable chance of getting away with it. He's priced up as he should be. Dallas, should be a competitive game. And to me, there are just these other environments I think are more ripe for just higher floors and higher ceilings for these guys. So I'm getting away from both LeBron and AD, probably one of my biggest stands of the night, and I hope I can survive it.
Okay. I am too, actually. And like you said, a lot of times it's not the greatest feeling in the world, but as good as LeBron James is, I don't know if it's worth getting there over many of these other guys that are priced around him. Sure, he's not crazy expensive, but even last year at times, LeBron James is a great fantasy producer, but playing alongside Anthony Davis, will he have big games? Yeah, he will. Did he only play 28 minutes last game? Yeah, he did. But on the season, you've got him averaging, so let me pull this up. So on the season, LeBron is averaging 1.47 fantasy points per minute. Like it's not a bad rate at all. It's still pretty strong. But compared to a lot of these other players that are priced around him, for example, Russell Westbrook, 1.72 fantasy points per minute we're seeing from him. James Harden, that number is only going to come up, but he's at 1.59 on DraftKings. A lot of these guys have just been better, and I'm projecting them to be better today is the thing.
And for me, just to add to that, within fantasy points per minute, I try to, think about the range of outcomes. To me, LeBron is one of the lower variance guys up top with that. He's going to get his, but I don't see, of course, he's going to have some big games in there, but Westbrook, Harden, Kyrie, these are guys that in short spurts can go nuclear. And I'm not sure early in a year like that LeBron, he's certainly not in that type of gear right now. I expect him to have a lot of games like we've seen, which are efficient, quality, but they're not slate winning, and especially with 8 games. So for me, I'm going to embrace some of these other guys where I know that if I get the right game with them, the ceiling is way higher than someone like LeBron.
Absolutely. Are you finding value anywhere else in this Lakers lineup, which, by the way, we'll be getting Kyle Kuzma back today?
Yeah, that just muddies the waters even more. I certainly looked, Dwight has had some promise here, but we've mentioned a couple guys already, in other games that I think I'm a little more interested in. They're also cheaper with Dice and some of those other ones, but I don't have a ton of from the Lakers. They have 2 lightning rods that are going to do the heavy lifting, but for me, their prices don't dictate me getting there either.
Okay. On the other side, Luka Doncic is spectacular, and I believe it's only him. I was going to try and look this up and get it out there in the Twitter machine, but I believe the only guys on their respective teams leading them in rebound chances, assist opportunity or potential assists, usage, and touches per game are Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. I think those are the only 2 guys that lead in all of those categories, which is, of course, insane. A lot of high-priced players today, especially in that 9K range. Does Luka fit into your plans?
He's the toughest one for me.
Yeah.
God, I'm a huge fan. I like, he's in the Westbrook bucket. He's going to be a lot of triple doubles this year. He can contribute in a lot of stats, and he doesn't need, Harden. Not that he can't do that, but Harden's going to get 55 points a lot, and that's how he's going to real points, and that's how he's going to do his heavy lifting.
And he's going to shoot 40 times.
That's right. Doncic is a guy. We can see a game where he takes, in the teens with shots, and he can still get you there at this price because he's just so good. As you mentioned, well-rounded with rebounds and assists. So coming off the bad game in Denver, where impressively they won on the road despite him not having the best game, I think I have some interest. But again, it goes back to me, where does he fall in the priority list? I have him ahead of guys like Brogdon and Kemba, but I have him behind guys like Westbrook and Kyrie.
Okay. That's what, oddly enough, that's exactly where I've got him too. Just the sheer volume, of course, is going to push him over the top in a lot of instances. Do you think he has the ceiling that some of the other players in his price range have?
I don't, to be honest, but to me also, he's one of the higher floors just because of the way he does it. He's the way he can get the triple-double bonus and things of that. He's going to chip in with a couple of steals here and there. I really like the well-roundedness. So I don't think he has the massive ceiling, but he also is one of the better floors, and that keeps him in play for me.
You know what's crazy this season, though? And I guess it makes sense because you've added Anthony Davis into the mix. The Lakers are playing at a bottom 5 pace, and defensively they have a top 5 defensive rating. So, we have to start viewing them in a different light than we did last season for sure. And with those personnel changes, it makes sense. When you've got guys, look, they may not be the best players anymore. They may not be the best shooters, but Avery Bradley's a quality defender. Danny Green is a great wing defender. LeBron James and Anthony Davis at small forward in the front court, or really at point guard in the front court. They have good defense, and Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee are at least great shot blockers. So this should be a good defense. It's just it's pretty wild that they're playing at such a slow pace. I think Luka's still very capable of doing damage, but I'm not going to lie and say that I'm overlooking this matchup, which is not nearly as good as it's been in seasons past.
Yeah, I think that's we'll have to wait and see again. It's early in the season and maybe the Lakers will take on a new form, but initially it's something that we have to kind of take notice of. Other than him, I'm not going to, Porzingis is in a really awkward price point. I don't think he'll be popular, but at the same time, I don't think I'm going to get there much. The guy I wanted to ask you about is Kleber. So we saw Dwight Powell return and it didn't do anything. Kleber still played 30 minutes against Denver. Now, I don't know if that's a direct result of Jokic. What do you make of him at just 4,000?
So Maxi Kleber was super cheap and expected to start that game until Dwight Powell was healthy. I know that Powell's minutes are going to rise since he's been, dealing with that injury. That's my only concern here. So how many minutes does Kleber get today? I would say, let me see what I have him at, because I think I had him at like 25, 26 minutes. I don't expect it to be 30 because I don't see Dwight Powell playing 14 minutes. I think Powell probably gets up to maybe 18 today, 19, takes 5 or so away from Kleber. Against the Lakers, I don't hate it, but I actually think there's plenty of value on this slate where I don't know how much of him I'm going to get to. I have him as like a decent value right now, middle of the road. But again, a lot of that depends if Markieff Morris is out and if a couple of these injured guys don't get on the court. I could see Kleber being one of these lower owned value plays otherwise. But right now, I don't really have much from Dallas at all.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think I fall pretty much in line with that. Again, the guys in Porzingis' price range tonight, I think, are going to be in a complete dead range across the industry just because you have so many top end guys, you have so many values. It just naturally funnels to that type of build. So, if you started with like a Kemba, Porzingis, and those types, I think that would be a very interesting way to do it. You're just sacrificing a lot of top end equity.
Right. Awesemo.com/join is where you can get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus subscription by using the sign-up code NBA Strategy. You see it at the bottom of the screen. All one word, NBA Strategy. Get you 50% off your first month. We're talking ownership projections, player projections, the top stack tools, the Boomer Bust tool for NBA. You have a Fantasy Cruncher add-on available too. All the lineup builder and so much more. Of course, all of our premium articles behind paywall that our guys spend so much time working on so we can give you the best content possible. We also have a $3.95 weekly express pass. So if you're not looking to dive in head first and you just want to dip your toes in the water, check that out as well. And click begin membership when you go to awesemo.com/join. We'll ask you what type of player you are, whether it's professional, serious, a hobbyist, and cater your subscription, your membership around your needs so you don't have too much and you don't have too little. We want to be able to, give everybody what they're looking for without it being too intense in one direction or the other. Make sure to use that sign-up code NBA Strategy, all one word, to get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus membership. All right, Ben, 2 games to go. Sacramento, Utah. We've got a low 214 on this one. 104 for the Kings, 110 for the Jazz, 6-point favorites. You actually look at this slate, there's only 2 games with a total above 216. Only 2 games. So 6 of the 8 are 216 or lower. It's not crazy. I mean, look, it's still a lot of points. The next one with a higher total we'll get to next. But this doesn't feel like the most appealing game. I think I can always probably make an argument for a Donnie Mitchell going up against what should be a pretty bad Sacramento team that's dealing with some banged up players. Utah though has the best defensive rating in the league, 93 points per 100 possessions, really good. They're also playing at the third slowest pace in the league. Meanwhile, the Kings have seen their pace of play come down. They're bottom 8. Defensively, however, they are also bottom 5. So I expect this game to be pretty sluggish, but I also think that Utah will have their way with the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, the Kings are. I almost bet them to make the playoffs before the year, and I'm glad I didn't do that because they're just bad.
Yeah, it's bad. I thought they'd be better. Losing Bagley didn't help.
No, but still,
it's been bad.
They just
for
lost
sure.
to the Hornets. That's deletion mode. This is a game filled with guys that I just kind of alluded to in weird prices. So Donovan Mitchell, I think, makes a fine play. He's just an awkward person in your builds tonight, I think, for the most part. Buddy Hield, I always am confident that, when you can shoot like that, you have a decent ceiling, but it's a very tough matchup. It's a slow pace, as you talked about. And the price is not, I don't think he's overpriced, but I certainly don't see a discount on him. For me, the guy that I wanted to talk about, because it kind of feels a little trappy, is Rashon Holmes. 2 monster games. But again, going against this Jazz front court, I think he's going to garner some ownership just by the game logs recently, with the minutes translating into plenty of production. But I do worry about him in this spot a bit.
Yeah, I mean, is he going to play 35 minutes again? And that's the question we've got to ask ourselves. If we're projecting him for that, then I think you probably have to appreciate him a little bit. But the price has come up. There's a player at a different position, of course, in a different game that is priced similarly. And if you're on DraftKings where you have so much roster flexibility, I'm probably going to get to him over Rashon Holmes. We'll talk about him in just a second. I have a tough time believing he gets to that 35-minute mark. Maybe, 29, 30 seems reasonable. Mm-hmm. And he is a decent per minute fantasy guy. But I right now don't think Rashon Holmes is going to end up in a ton of my lineups. Probably, I would say probably end up, I can even run a quick crunch before we head out, but I think probably maybe 5 or 10%.
Yeah, and I don't have ownership in front of me, but I don't think that's going to get you over. Just looking at this slate.
I'll tell you what he's projected for in ownership right now. 29%.
That's what I'm saying.
The third highest projected owned player on the entire slate.
Yep. And that's directly speaks to, in a vacuum, I totally get merit for looking to a guy, and I still think he can, hit around 30 minutes in a game like this. But if you're telling me that I can take some of these direct pivots for, 10% ownership in 8 games, there's going to be some dispersed ownership out there. I will gladly pivot away from a guy like Holmes, who's, if he's pushing 30%, he has, I'm not predicting foul trouble, but there is that narrative. It is a tough matchup, and the salary has risen a bit. So keep an eye on that one. For me, I'll probably try to get away in most situations.
Yeah. Any viable pivots at his position that you like, or is this just he's really expensive? Or no, I'm sorry, not really expensive, but really, really popular. That does seem like a lot of ownership to be going to somebody like Rashon Holmes for sure.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, this is a guy. I know it's a small sample size. This is no known commodity. He used to be a Sixer, right? Your boy.
Yeah, damn right he was.
So there you go. That's your department. But this is someone that I look for situations like this. I look to pivot off them in most circumstances. I think there's a lot more risk than maybe people are digging into. And with so many values, if you want to pay down, or you can go, not to get ahead of ourselves, but someone like Aldridge and some of these other guys in the next game, I feel a lot more comfortable with.
Do you feel comfortable with anything else from this game, or is it mostly one that you don't think you'll be getting to a lot of?
I don't see myself getting to a ton of it, to be honest. There's a lot of plays in there that I just, you look at the Bogdanoviches of the world, Gobert. I just, with 8 games, I'm not sure that I see the necessity to really force any of these guys into my lineups.
No, I'm with you. And, Bojan Bogdanovich, for anyone wondering, that's Utah's Bogdanovich, has had a couple of solid games. He's very scoring dependent, though. Bogdanovich, the thing about him is he's $4,500, right? And let's say he plays 26 minutes or so. I can probably go down $1,000 or $800 and find guys that might not be as great as per minute guys, but still have the ability in tournaments to do exactly what he's doing. Like Terrence Ross is $3,800. Terrence Ross is not a spectacular player, but I'm telling you right now, with a 25% usage rate, if he does heat up early in this game, he's going to play 28 minutes. That's how it works with somebody like Terrence Ross. Wes Matthews. I don't like Wes Matthews, but there are some players down here that give you plenty of cheap value to get those more expensive guys in. And I don't know if, Bogdanovich against Utah at a near $1,000 increase is exactly where you need to go with it.
That's the thing too. It's one of the worst, if not the worst matchup for any of these guys. And it goes without saying, if he look at his game log, if he gets on fire from 3, it's going to be great. But there's 5 other guys at shooting guard that you can say the same thing about. You just echoed some of the cheaper ones. We already mentioned Eric Gordon, Burks is in the next game. There's a million guys down there that same narrative applies. So I'll take the path of least resistance on most of my teams.
I'm with you. All right, let's get to this final game. I do like it. Deonte Murray, first of all, has been amazing this season. I love what I'm seeing from this dude. Coming back from that ACL, producing in every category. But he's sidelined today on the second of a back-to-back. So what that means is that Derek White will probably be one of my higher-owned players. He's played solid basketball this season for sure. Played 26 and 25 minutes in each of his last 2 games, 30-plus fantasy points in each. But really, more importantly, Ben, with Deonte Murray sidelined, it stands to reason that Derek White should benefit. I think you could get him up around 30, 31 minutes. I try not to get in Popovich's head, but it's a decent spot, a 20% usage rate guy. The numbers really across the board, they're not spectacular, but in a game that has the second highest total on the slate against a just dreadful and banged up Warriors team that we know a lot of times very bad teams will play at an elevated pace just to give themselves some semblance of a chance. The Warriors, truthfully, they're a bad team. They're without Curry, even with Curry, they were not a great team. Now they're a pretty bad team. Just to put it in perspective for you, they're playing at a top 5 pace. Right now, nobody has a worse defensive rating than the Warriors. 118.5 points allowed per 100 possessions, per 48 across 48 games or 48 minutes. So across a full game. I'm not doing per game because it includes overtime with a lot of these. The Warriors are allowing 126.3 points. Only the Rockets are allowing more than that. So 126.3 points per 48. Been a bad defense, really bad.
Yeah, they're struggling. I mean, even before, Curry went down, it's like, oh, they were getting blown out by the Suns before that even happened. So
right.
Let's not get crazy. But going back to White, yeah, you're 100% right. And, I used this example earlier. He's another guy that I certainly like tonight because you can get him right twice. If for some reason he doesn't see a minutes increase and he still plays in the middle, 25, 26, well, he has shown he easily can return value for this price tag. Now, if he gets the boost and the bump to, say, 30, I mean, you have that much more upside, that much more wiggle room. So it is really easy to make a case for him with Murray sitting out on the back-to-back. If you don't want to play him, though, I think you could look to DeMar DeRozan. This is a guy that, again, he's not I get tough. It's tough with him just because he kind of doesn't flash a ton of variance, but he returns quality games. The minutes are stable. We kind of know what he does. If he can raise, the peripherals, assists in particular, I think this is someone that makes it an interesting play in kind of that dead price range.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. For me, I actually think that the benefit too is that Deonte Murray appeared to be taking some opportunities away from DeRozan in terms of playmaking. Derek White likely isn't going to be that guy. So I think DeRozan benefits from that. A second game of a back-to-back doesn't worry me too much this early in the season for someone that wasn't injured. I don't have an issue with it. On the other side, probably the most popular player from this game is not going to be Draymond Green, and it shouldn't be. He's a better per minute guy with all of these guys off the court, but also keep in mind this team's going to be far less efficient, and he's just not someone that's going to take over as a primary scoring threat. You're not going to see him driving to the rack at a high clip. You're not going to see Draymond Green, dictating how this offense works outside of being a playmaker. He's fine. I don't have an issue with Green, but to me, he's probably not going to be a top priority in this game. Jordan Poole, on the other hand, on a day where we have so many good top range players, Jordan Poole at near minimum salary probably has to be in consideration for one of the better value plays on a team that is, now voided their highest volume shooter.
No doubt. And he's really cheap. We've mentioned a lot of value plays. He's towards the min. And it's a guy that opens up a ton. So we've been preaching all slate. You want to find some value that can unlock the Hardens of the world. This is one of the easiest ways to do it. D'Angelo Russell is another guy that's going to demand, he's going to have to do a ton, but he can't do it all. So I really am interested to see who else on the Warriors kind of fills this void, because we know he's going to be busy. But you're 100% right. Draymond is just not that guy. He's just not. He's a perfect fit for a fantastic team. He's that glue guy. We've seen it time and time again. But he's not suddenly going to start jacking up shots and doing a ton of things like that. I don't see that in any capacity. So he'll still have some big games, but it's no doubt I don't think this is a good situation for him on the whole.
Yeah. And Popovich is very good at taking top range player or the higher volume players out of the game plan, making it very difficult for them to produce. You do have to wonder here that when you look at who they have in this starting lineup, Dre Green, Mari Spellman, Willie Cauley-Stein will get minutes at the 5. Glenn Robinson, everybody else here. D'Angelo Russell to move to the point, and you see, Lee or Poole come into play. Of course, Alec Burks is in the picture now as well. But you would think that the logical move would just be to do everything you can to take D'Angelo Russell out of this game and let the rest of these scrubs try to beat you.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And it's clear that the Warriors are searching. So I think we're going to see a lot of bodies. Pascal's another guy. He's been actually really good. I don't know if that shooting can continue. Probably not. But he's someone, it's just, there's a lot in flux. I think we know that Russell is going to demand serious volume. Draymond's going to be a staple. Other than that, though, there's just a lot of guys. So someone like Poole, dirt cheap, that price is going to rise given the situation. The Warriors are just, it's been a long time coming, but they're really in a bind now. They're just running out of bodies.
They are. Who do you think? We're going to discuss this, but I don't think it's an easy answer. And everyone has their opinions, of course, so everyone will feel confident in their answer, despite probably not. Despite the fact that they probably shouldn't be. You've got Jordan Poole, Damian Lee, and then even Alec Burks. Who do you think is going to be the player that sees the most success today? Because if one of them is going to be way more popular than the other, it could make sense to pivot to the guy that might see the same amount of minutes and opportunity at less ownership. It feels like we're always in a spot where everyone latches on to a specific player, and that might be Jordan Poole, with really no insight as to whether he's going to be the top dog there to take over the voided opportunities from Stephen Curry.
Yeah, it's tough. As you mentioned, I don't think we have clarity on it. I don't know if it's biased because it's a more known commodity, but to me, Burks is someone that really should be given the opportunity to get, he's been in rotation a bit, but he needs to get more minutes. And I think we could see that. Poole is the cheapest. And I think, on a slate like this, every dollar is really going to count. Sometimes that's not an issue. In this one, it really is. So I get him demanding some ownership, but to me, Burks should really garner some interest. He certainly is on my radar, but we'll have to wait and see exactly how the rotation shakes out.
Right. And, you can look at how they subbed players in and out for Curry throughout the start of the season. But then you also have to consider that D'Angelo Russell is going to move to the point. But yeah, I mean, Jordan Poole, I would suspect, and you're right, because he's so cheap and because he was already getting minutes, probably makes the most sense here to be that guy. Damian Lee Damian Lee subbed in for Curry and then essentially played, this is on the 28th, and then he played 6 minutes with Curry on the floor and then was off and then played with Curry again and then subbed in for Curry to start the third quarter and played with him again in the fourth and then got a few additional minutes in that blowout. So again, it's kind of difficult to see what we're going to get here. If you were to look at D'Angelo Russell and who's getting those minutes in his place, it was Damian Lee on the floor when Curry was also on the floor, and then Jordan Poole being off the floor. I think you probably go with Jordan Poole here, but Damian Lee, if he's much less owned, you can make an argument for that as well. Anything else from this one before we head out?
No, I just want to kind of just to add to that. I think, it's been a weird situation. It's only a couple games. We've seen a lot of blowouts for the Warriors, and that adds to some of the mystery. And on the flip side, I think we're going to see throughout the year when they've got guys, Lee had the hot hand against New Orleans and Kerr stuck with him. I think you're going to see some of that. We talk about it in football with running back timeshares. It's hard to predict that, but I think it's pretty clear that if Poole, Burks, or Lee go out there and certainly are dialed in, one of them could dictate the minutes just solely on them playing well from the start.
No, it's a great point because you take the game prior to that, Golden State was on their second of a back-to-back. Damian Lee's minutes looked a whole lot different, right?
Yep.
He only played 17 minutes. He played 4.5 minutes in the first half. He, of course, did sub in for Curry and then played some minutes with Curry. And then Curry played the entirety of the third quarter, which means Damian Lee didn't see it at all. Damian Lee then played the fourth quarter, all 12 minutes. Why? They were down by 42 points.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. 100. I think that can't be overstated in the small sample size.
Right.
There's a lot of bad data in there, in my opinion.
Yep, no question. And then, look, Jordan Poole played the entirety of that too. But he's the rookie, and I also think with what we've got working for this team, I don't think they're at a point where it's like, okay, we're just going to give up on the season, right? It's, of course, too early to do something like that, but it is encouraging to see that Jordan Poole is already getting pretty significant opportunities in his first season.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to see that continue with this team that's wide open again. I see chat mentioning Pascal. He's a little priced up. I think he's in this mix as, he's certainly going to garner some minutes, maybe in the front court as well. But I just think that Golden State's rotations are so in flux due to so many new faces, so many injuries.
So many blowouts too.
Exactly. That it's a situation we can look to exploit until it kind of, regulates itself. So we will have to wait and see, Bowman, another body. He's towards the back of the priority list, but you can take some shots, but I don't think we know anything for certain here.
Okay. You're right. I guess we'll wait to see what we get in the starting lineup, even though we've seen Steve Kerr start guys and play them for 15 minutes while the bench guys get a lot of the work. We'll see how it shakes out. Ben, it's been fun, man. Happy to do an NBA show with you. Might be like the second one we've ever done together.
Yeah, not a ton. But there'll be more in the future pending that Chad hasn't burned it down with me on the appearance here. But yeah, absolutely.
Nah, of course not. You're a hero around these parts.
What I do. No, good times as always. And like I said, if you guys hanging around, come back at noon. I will be breaking down NFL, NCAA football, anything else, Breeders' Cup. Why not? We'll do it all.
Yeah, man, we got a lot coming up today. Everything that Ben just discussed. The NFL Strategy show with Manny Laura, Chris Randone is coming up immediately after us at 11 a.m. Eastern. Stay at youtube.com/Awesemo. NFL, we got you got the Awesemo Odds show today too, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's at noon.
Yeah, you mentioned that, I believe. Yahoo DFS picks, got NHL picks with Jay Kari. We got Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock combined streams coming up tonight for NBA. Oh, man, we got it all. Hey, and if you enjoy the show, you want to help support us here so we can keep putting out free content on YouTube, hit us with a thumbs up, like that video, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. It does help us out a lot, and your services are greatly appreciated. Ben, take us out, baby.
All right. Yeah, that'll do it for Friday. I don't know how many times I'll get to say this, but we're going to get on out of here. Good luck tonight, and we will certainly see you, if not Sunday, for the NFL Deep Dive, but before then. So good luck, everyone. We'll talk soon.
Peace.